Welcome to the Ask Ralph podcast, where listening to an experienced financial professional can help you make sense of confusing questions, current headlines, and industry trends about taxes, small business, financial decision-making, investment strategies, and even the art of proper budgeting, as Ralph makes the complex simple by sharing his real-world knowledge with all things financial. Now here's your host, Ralph Estep Jr.
I'd like to welcome Brandon Steiner to the Ask Ralph program today. Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure. I'm right here in the heart of New York City. People smoking weed, people getting robbed, people doing business, people making money. So I feel like we're right in the middle of it. So why not get right in the middle of it with you?
Cool. So let's jump right into it then. So can you share a little bit about your background and how you got started in the sports memorabilia industry?
I mean, I'd love to tell you a sexy story about how this all happened, but I think most really important, monumental things happen a lot of times by accident, just from working hard and just trying to figure out how to take something you're already doing and making it better.
Sure.
I was booking probably about 2,000 appearances a year. I still do a lot of appearances. I'm talking about athletes and celebrities. When I first started my first company, Steiner Sports, I started that with $4,000. I'm not with Steiner anymore. Sold that. My new company's Collectible Exchange. But back then in the 90s, I was booking all these appearances. I was never home, running around with all these athletes, and the margin just wasn't big enough. So I figured, let me see if I can go create some collectibles around these appearances where the companies that were hiring me to maybe book a Roger Staubach or Emmitt Smith or a Joe Namath, I'd sell them helmets and autograph photos and stuff to give away to their clients. I was making as much money on that as I did on the appearances. So
Wow.
I decided, let me start a separate division with products. And that's really what kind of kicked in. I never thought I was going to be in a memorabilia world that I'm in now. I just thought it was going to be an adjunct to my sports marketing of athletes that I was doing, repping players and repping companies to find players to help them grow their business. I still do that to this day. And what's crazy is the leader to maybe getting somebody to use my talent is the fact that I get them these cool photos or footballs or baseballs to give to clients or to give to different potential business people. And the stuff does work. I didn't think I was going to become a household name in the collectible business, frankly, but you never know. But my intent initially was just to make a little bit more money, expand what I was doing.
So my question for you then was, you jumped right into it, was what were the challenges you faced? What were you up against getting into that in a new market for yourself?
Everything. I mean, first of all, just staying in business long enough to see if it could work is always a challenge. I always tell people, sometimes waking up in the morning is a challenge.
It
You know what I
can
mean?
be.
So because when you get into that business, cash flow at the beginning, especially I started with very few dollars. Cash flow is a big challenge. You got money on the street. And then that's on the appearances, because the companies would pay 30 days, 60 days. The athletes want to get paid right away. Then
Sure.
you now got to lay out money for inventory. You got to buy the baseballs. You got to buy the helmets and footballs. So all of a sudden I had to outlay money. So I took $10,000 out of the bank. So I'd have a bunch of inventory to get signed when people would ask for it, along with these appearances. I mean, there's so many challenges, particularly now when you get into the inventory. You need an inventory system. You need somebody to kind of manage and ship the inventory out, because it's a whole bunch of widgets. And, I'm busy booking players, picking them up, taking them. I need somebody to go ship those helmets, somebody to make sure that the stuff is authenticated and all that. So, I mean, I think when you get into the entrepreneurial aspects, I don't think anything's that complicated. The brilliance is in the basics and the fundamentals. And what's most importantly is, the consistency of it, and really not neglecting those basics and fundamentals, which is what ultimately will help you build your brand. But
Sure.
when you start juggling, and this is where entrepreneurs get crazy, either they risk or they don't have the cash flow, or you're wearing a bunch of hats. One day you're shipping stuff, next day you're driving some big name athlete, then you're trying to collect money. You don't have the money and the setup initially to do all those things. So it gets tricky. But great entrepreneurs, one thing that they have in common is that they don't mind the mess and they don't mind the discombobulation. Great entrepreneurs figure it out. You have that figure it out gene. So if you're not one of those people who like to figure it out and take chaos, clean your closet that's a mess and turn it into something that's perfectly in order, then it's probably not going to be for you.
That makes sense. So how did you approach building the partnerships with these professional athletes? What was your way you got into that connection?
I think that's a great question. And I think that one of the things that gets lost in today's business is the word value. Value is what you could do for someone they can't do for themselves. I think when somebody runs into a big account, in my case, running into a big name athlete, the first thing you think of is, wow, what can I get from this? I can write this big order. I can make a lot of money. But the first thing that I think of is, what value can I provide this person? I don't worry about the money. I don't worry about what I can get. I worry about what I can give.
Sure.
And the bigger the opportunity, the more bigger that my mind's thinking about, what can I give? What can I do for these people, for this person, for this account that they can't do for themselves? So they'll want to keep me around long enough. And then if I do it, they'll probably want to use me for the expertise and service that I'm going to provide. It's not an easy tactic to take, but when you think about it, if you're really trying to get into difficult accounts or deal with high profile people, it's the only avenue I could think of, and it's worked really well for me. And it's a much better feeling to initiate a relationship where you're doing something for someone first before you're asking them to do something back.
Absolutely. And I say to all my clients, it's all about building relationships. And it sounds like you would agree with me 100%.
Well, I think building relationships are critical, but initiating relationships are harder.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You have to have a relationship in order to build it. And when I talk about the value proposition, about what you can give, what you can do, how you can serve, how you can solve, that's how you initiate a relationship. Doesn't mean you're going to have one. And then you build off of it by doing what you say, going the extra distance, caring about the little things. I mean, all those are really basic one-on-one tactics. But the hard part is when you initiate, there's a give before you get.
Sure.
Most
Absolutely.
people are immediately thinking, if I give, what am I getting back here? I'm thinking, if I give, what more can I give? And that's where that separates the children from the adults, in my opinion.
So you work with a lot of high profile athletes. Do you have any memorable stories or experiences that stand out that you want to share?
How much time do you have?
Oh, we've got plenty of time. No, I just
Well,
imagine
I'll give you one great
yeah.
example, actually, that it's been really relevant to me. And the name of this story is, there's no such thing as a big game. When people tell me I got a big sale, I got a big meeting, the first thing that comes to mind is that person has got mediocre all over them. I'm sitting at Tampa Stadium in spring training in the middle of March. I had an appearance with Mariano Rivera, the great closer on the Yankees, after the game. In the fourth inning, he comes down, sits next to me. Our appearance was after the game. So I turned to him and said, "What are you doing here? I thought we were going to meet after the game." He says, "I went to Joe and I asked him to pitch early so we can leave early." I said, "Yeah, you didn't pitch?" He goes, "No, I just pitched the last inning. I had gone up and gotten a pretzel. So I wasn't paying attention." He goes, "It's just a spring training game. Third inning, who cares? It's Tampa." He goes, "Spring training?" I get on the mound. That was 1, 2, 3, 8, 9 pitches. I had them down, boom, boom, boom. I said, "Yeah, but it's Tampa. Who cares? It's a spring training game in March." He goes, "Brandon, when I get on the mound in March, April, game 7, bottom of the 9th, World Series, I never alter anything. The way I just pitched is the same way I pitched in the World Series, game 7, bottom of the 9th. And what happens is, by thinking like this and preparing myself, which I did today, when I get into whatever situation, I have to alter nothing. I have the same mindset, the same focus, and nothing changes." And, I thought about that, and I was like, something like that's consistency over time equals credibility. That means there's no such thing as a big game. You don't want to go in a surgery and the doc says, "It's not a big operation. I don't really know this guy well." The great doctors are the ones that, no matter who you are or what you are, they're doing incredible work, and it never varies. It's not because they were out late the night before or whatever. They're prepared. They're confident in themselves. They're confident in God. They're confident in their strategy. And that's what I learned from Mariano is you slow things down always, not when it's just a big game. You always slow things down and do what you prepared for. Keep your strategy in mind and always have faith. And faith is what you believe in, something that you can't even see. I think that a lot of people don't realize how important faith is in your business and in your life strategies, because there's got to be some higher power that's guiding you and helping you along to ultimately get to you the dreams and goals you want to have.
Absolutely. And I just finished authoring a book that's getting ready to get released that talks about that. And it's it's the gospel of entrepreneurship, and it's allowing Jesus to lead you in your business. So it kind of segues into my next question for you. And I know that you've authored several books, Living on Purpose, stories about faith, fortune, and fitness that will lead you to an extraordinary life. What was the inspiration to have you set the time aside? Because I know, just doing it myself, the time commitment is huge. So what was your inspiration in getting into writing?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes this gets my own head straight. I'm in the middle of writing a fourth book, which is a completely different subject matter. But I think sometimes writing it, and I feel like I've had a lot of amazing blessings of people that have been able to show me. I do believe that people have been placed on this planet. If your eyes are wide open, your arms are open, you're going to run into people that are here to guide you and help you and do extraordinary things. So, I think the common denominator here is enthusiasm. The root word to enthusiasm is enthusios, and that means to be with God. So when you really want to be a great entrepreneur, or you want to take your business to another level, one of the key ingredients you want to start is with enthusiasm.
Sure.
That comes with curiosity, that comes with faith, and obviously to be with God. So the last book I wrote, Living on Purpose, was, I kind of hit 50 and I was like, I don't know, man, this is not feeling complete for me. I'm not feeling like, I've done really well. I've had a lot of success on the radar. I think pretty much the best at what I do. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody better than me. I take a lot of pride in being not good, not extraordinary, but being that guy that could do some things that no one else could do. That's what I always wanted to be. I didn't want to be successful. I didn't want to be extraordinary. Oh, that guy was really good. I want to be that. There's nobody who's done what that guy's done. Nobody can do what that guy does.
Right.
That one doctor, nobody can do what he does. The lawyer, nobody can get you out of a case. Nobody can get you out. No, that guy. And it takes a tremendous level of commitment, but it also takes a tremendous amount of curiosity and enthusiasm. And if you underline that with a little bit of common sense, which is putting yourself in a common person's shoes and understanding how other people are thinking, so you can take your experience and knowledge and apply it to what's really going on, not only what's going on in your head. That's what a lot of entrepreneurs struggle is. Like, they've got a good idea, their head's rolling, their mind's racing, they're energized, they're going for it, but you don't really, because we always talk about understand your customer, know your customer is, but you got to get inside your customer's head. You got to feel what they're feeling, know what they know, see what they see, and completely get out of your own head to do it. So you don't get biased or don't get opinionated, but you can see where people are really coming from. And then, and only then, can you see the white space? Can you see the direction to go? And it's like a hole, when you're running, like a running back going through a hole that he could fit a truck through.
Yeah, like Emmitt Smith when he used to tear up the defenses, right?
Exactly.
So my next question for you, and I mentioned this in my book, and I want to talk to you about it, and is how did you manage that personal life and work-life balance? What did you learn about how to handle that?
Well, it's a big part of the third book, and I tell people, look, it ain't easy. First of all, stop trying to get work-life balance. It doesn't exist, especially when you want to be extraordinary and really good at something. But respect life balance. Respect the other pillars. Don't be a 10 at business and then a 3 or 4 at a dad, at 4 or 5 at a husband, and 5 or 6 as a friend. That's not a successful person to me. So, you got to make sure you respect. We need friendships that are really important, the good ones. Your marriage, your partnership, it's important. You can't just wing it. You got to work at that like the same way you're trying to be really successful in business. And you can't just balance it, but you can't ignore it. So I always tell people, wow, you made a lot of money. You're really good at your business. When was the last time you read a book about parenting? When's the last time you read a book about being a better husband or wife? Oh, well, never. Well, you go to trade shows to learn how to be a better business person, right? And then most importantly, also your health is so important in all of that, because if you want to have the energy to be a good dad or a good spouse, you want to have the energy to go into work and kill it every day on a high level. Eating well and exercising is important, and it's different for everyone. The important thing is, some people work out every day. I try to do cardio every day for my own mental health sanity, because my ADHD and everything else, I'm just got to do cardio. Sure. But doing nothing and thinking you're going to do it down the road once you make a whole bunch of money is foolish. You do more good, which leads you to doing more well. Do more good for yourself. Do more good for the most important relationships around you. It'll lead you to doing more well. If you try to balance it out, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I find somebody who's got great work-life balance, and it's like looking at them is like watching paint dry. I mean, like seriously. Oh,
Just
well, I
boring.
wake up at 8. I go to work at 9. I come home at 5. I feed my cat at 6. Like, something like that's just, I don't know. That's just not me. And I
And
don't think it has
it's
to
not
be.
realistic for the entrepreneur either, I don't think. I just don't think that
No,
exists.
no, 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 not at all.
So one of the things you
Not
brought
at
up while we were chatting there, I know you do a lot of work with charities. What inspires you to do work with charities, and what are the big ones that you work with?
Well, it's funny the way you asked that question. I have to question the question. First of all, helping people is not a burden. I don't need to be inspired. The reason why I'm on this planet, a good amount of the reason why I'm on this planet is to help others. So,
Absolutely.
helping people is not a burden. It's an opportunity that will lead you to share joy. So the fact that the work that I do, the good work that I try to do to help others gives me tremendous joy besides the obvious of helping others. I mean, there's only 2 reasons to be on the planet. And one of the amazing things is that we're even born on this planet. And if we're born on the right side of this planet, think about how lucky we are. But
Oh,
more
amen.
importantly, helping people is like 50% of the reasons why we are on this earth, not just to fill your pocket and you have this incredible life, but to help other people have a good life or a safe life or a better life. And then the other reason we're here is to grow. I always say happiness. You want to be happy? Grow and increase your gratitude. Happiness resides right in the cross section of growth and gratitude. That's where it lives, right there. If you're not growing and you don't have a high level of consistent gratitude, you're probably freaking miserable.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you're probably not that happy. I mean, I'm not saying for sure, but there's a good chance.
Yeah, and I've noticed in my own life dealing with some high level high income people, they're some of the most miserable people you'll ever meet. And I think you get to a point, like I got to it when I hit 50. And it's like where money's great and all, but it doesn't fill the tank as much. And I think that's what I hear you saying, is that there's other things that fill your tank at this point in your life.
Well, it's not that there are only other things, but you got to remember why we're here.
Right.
I mean, we're not here just to make a ton of money so we can live in a great house and have cars and everything. Money we talk about always won't buy you happiness, blah, 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 but it will decrease your unhappiness.
Well, that's
money
true.
does serve a purpose.
Sure.
There's a good reason why you should go and make a lot of money. It's the capitalistic way. I'm not against it.
Sure.
I'm not against money grabbing. I'm not against doing some things just because it made me a lot of money. But what I'm not going to do is do that full time over a long length of time without doing good, without doing community work. I would say my company is not a collectible company, Collectible Exchange. Collectible Exchange is a community company. Everything we do, always a part of it has a community connection, something where we're helping either a charity with an athlete, a charity locally, using the influences of all these big name athletes to do more than just make money. And it works out fine. I make plenty of money, but also I do make plenty of good. I make some people happier by giving them the influence and the connection that they may not have themselves.
Do you find it more difficult to attract those athletes now? Do they seem to be more self-centered, or do you still have the ability to connect those athletes to these different ventures you're working in?
I think that the athletes have been incredibly difficult since day one for 40 years. There's a reason where all the hair on the top of his head went. I mean, make no mistake, you get into a good amount of businesses, not just mine. I mean, if you're going in and you think you're going to avoid difficulty, like you got to get good at difficulty. You got to be good at dealing with people that are difficult, because many industries are going to present a lot of difficulty, almost regardless of the industry you're going in. But again, if you are really, really blitzing with value, I'm not calling up athletes to saying what I'm going to do this. No, how can I help you is my first line. And I have value always when I call these players of what I think I could do for them. I'm always going to go above and beyond with a value card of what I could do, what the best possible scenario of what I think I could do for them, even though sometimes what I'm offering them doesn't even necessarily help me.
Right.
But that's how I get relationships initiated. But when you do that, you got to back it up. You got to stand tall and do the stuff you say, even though you're not filling your pockets up at the moment. But over the time, if you're playing the long game, which is not always easy, things come around, because most people don't want a one-way street relationship, and you're doing a lot for them. They want to return, they want to reciprocate, and you find a way to work it out between the two.
Sure, that makes sense. Now, you've been in the industry for a while. What have you seen in the way of technology that you've had to adapt to, and what has that been a challenge?
Well, I mean, the one thing is that athletes, particularly with athletes, celebrities, I mean, people are very enamored by their Instagrams and their number of likes and all that. They feel like they don't need an athlete almost many times even to show up as long as they were able to do a post. So,
Really?
so celebrities can influence a customer base by never leaving their apartment, which is really good for them. You know, back when I first started, you had to show up somewhere, hope that the media showed up, or you did a store something where a lot of people showed. You had to go to a whole bunch of news stations and to get them interviewed. So that part's a lot easier, and you can make a lot more money in a lot shorter period of time. But you got to remember the athletes now also are a lot smarter. Besides making a lot more money, they want inclusion. They don't want to just sign up for anything. They want ownership, or they want to know more about the company they're messing around with. I think that the athletes now, as opposed to back in the 80s and 90s, are a lot more media trained, and they also know the responsibilities and the accountabilities that come with being a celebrity. I think it's critical for all of us to know that whatever business and industries we're in, it comes with responsibilities and accountabilities. The sooner you take on that, the probably faster you realize you're on the road to maybe doing something extraordinary. Unfortunately, for some people, it takes a long time. And every now and then with some athletes, they ignore it and it comes back to haunt them. But I think that athletes are just so much more savvy and smarter on the business end. And if guys like Magic Johnson, who's like one of my idols, because look what he's done on the business level, it's amazing. You see some of the business owners, you see a whole bunch of different players now that are just more than just players. They put their money to work, just like other businessmen and myself have done. And set a good example for a lot of the players now to know that while they're playing, they got to invest in some businesses and set their lives up. And I'm seeing a lot more of that, which is really very, very, really cool. For me to grow in this business, see so many players fail, be broke on the street, it's really demoralizing and it's painful. And I'm seeing less of that now, and a lot more athletes being trained and well groomed to their future.
Do you feel like the different, the teams and all that are doing a better job of getting these athletes some guidance when they first start out so that they're not, faced with all these things coming at them from all directions? Is that one of the reasons why you think you're seeing less of that?
No.
No?
I think the teams, there's such little loyalty now with many of the teams, frankly. But I see it a lot more parental involvement. NIL will bring more parental environment. I see a lot of players looking out for players. You see a lot more passing down, players going to older players, getting advice, getting guidance, players that have done well, making themselves available. I think it's an inside job. And not to put anything bad on the owners or anything, because, they've got their own set of agendas. But, look, there's nothing like being a player. It's hard. I don't know what it's like to be a player, but, you're on the road, you're on private planes. When a player talks to a player, you've been through the same things, and you got the women in the lobby, you got people trying to cheat you. There's nothing like a player who has nothing really to gain other than to try to educate you, make sure you don't make the mistakes that he made. But I will tell you one thing that I think teams should be thinking about is that a lot of these rosters are cut really thin. I would love to see one veteran roster spot at a certain level, so you have an elder statesman on every team in every sport, almost as like an older mentor to show and explain and keep these younger kids from doing stupid things. Now, you see that happen with a few teams in the NBA. I'd like to see it happen with all sports, because there's nothing like an older player who's been through the ringer, been around the block a few times. That experience is priceless. Now, at the Falk School, which I started, sports management school at Syracuse, we have a couple classes that media train, teach these athletes about the ABCs of things that as you become a professional athlete, you can learn. I see that happening in a bunch more colleges. But remember, a lot of kids are not going to college. And if they do, it's maybe only for a year. So it's sometimes a lot of that doesn't stick.
Right. And that makes sense. And that's, I think what you're getting at is mentoring. And I mentioned in my book that I think even as business owners, we have to mentor with other business owners because we can learn from each other. Would you tend to agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. But if you really want to learn, first of all, don't hang out with people that do what you do. Don't get mentorship from people that are in your industry. Go way outside. A lot of things in business are a lot more similar, from a doctor to real estate to insurance. A lot of the same stuff is, and you can learn, and you get a better perspective when you deal with people that are not in your industry. But also another thing I want to mention is that I'm really into two-way mentorship.
Okay.
Yes, I'm an older person. I mentor young kids, but I keep a lot of young kids mentoring me. How the hell do I know all these apps? How the hell do I know where all these hot restaurants are? So I share as much as I can with some of these younger kids to teach them the stuff that, experience and different things that I know that they may not know. But I am wide open to making sure that they are teaching me things to do on my social media. I'm a big social media guy. I love it. Learning all these different apps, learning all these shortcuts. The Generation Z, a lot of people call them lazy, and they're right. They are a little lazy. And one of the problems is that they're so freaking smart. They get stuff done so much faster than we ever did and ever gonna do. So I guess they got to balance that out. But I want to take advantage of those young ones to show me how to do some of that. You know what I mean? I'm not afraid of it. So I keep those kids around me close. I listen to them. I give them that respect because they are really smart. And hopefully we can go in a two-way mentorship program, which is I'm a big fan of for older people out there. Don't run yourself out of business. You don't need to. Just because things are changing, this stuff's not that complicated. But if you make it complicated, if you don't get the right help, listen, you got a bad tooth, you're not going to leave it alone. You're going to go to a really good dentist. Right. You got a problem on your computer, you're trying to figure out how to go book a trip. Sit down with some kids, let them show you how to work the apps that you need to go book stuff. And that's how I look at it. There's definitely a solution to every problem you have. And the problem is usually you go to older people to get those solutions, but now you got to go to younger people too.
Oh, absolutely. And I had a client say to me the other day, it's a full-time job managing social media at this point. And I know that has to be, near a full-time job for you.
I think I have some people help me, but something, you got to take the more difficult things in your life and you got to turn them into your favorite. Just because you're not good at something, you got to be careful, because if you're not good at something, you're not going to want to do it. And it's going to be a pain in the ass. If you take your most difficult things that you're not that good at, and you must turn those into your favorite things to do. I'll give you an example. Like my wife loves the theater.
Okay.
All right. The theater, I go to musicals. She loves museums. I don't love museums and I don't love the theater, but I've made going to the theater, I've made going to museums my favorite thing to do. This way, when I do them, I've learned to enjoy it. But we always move away from the things that we don't think we like. But if they are involving the most important people you're dealing with, you got to make them your favorite things. Your customers are on your social media. They're talking to you. You can't ignore them. You can't be like, that's a pain in the ass. I don't believe in that. But it doesn't mean that you can't have somebody help you. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't put the time in to learn how to do it. Because if you don't, you're going to run yourself right out of business. You know what I mean? No, you're going to see yourself in a little hut down in Florida. And hopefully some people every now and then are going to mail you a letter or give you a call once in a while. Like, to me, I'm in touch with my peeps. I'm in touch with people. Listen, I spend about an hour and a half a day on social media, and I have somebody that helps me with some of the different things that maybe is another hour and a half. And, I could probably do more. And by the way, I will be doing more. I'm going to be doing an eBay Live show. I'm actually be doing my own show multiple times a week on eBay Live, just show you how crazy this is. But I used to do a TV show.
Cool.
I used to do a radio show, and I moved away from that. Who's watching that? I'm like, I'm going to do a live streaming show on a network that's got 180 million customers that are going to push the hell out of me. Now, do I know how to do that? No, I had to hire some young kids to help me produce the show and everything else. And I think it's going to be pretty good.
But you've got to adapt to the current times, is what you're basically saying. You can't hunker down in the basement and pretend like the world isn't changing around you.
You got to have your head on a swivel, no doubt.
So you mentioned a couple of projects and initiatives that you've got going on. Tell us more about those things you're going to be doing here in the future.
What's funny is, a collectible exchange is just different than when I was at Steiner. And Steiner, we were cranking out. I sold 50 million dollars of dirt. Wow. Sold over 30 million autographs. I was rocking. Now I created a marketplace where if you have stuff in your house, I can help you authenticate, help you sell it. I have 150,000 items on Collectible Exchange. My old company, I never had more than 35. Wow. I bought a company called starstock.com. If you're a guy or you're a woman, your kids have all these trading cards you don't know what to do with. We created this. It's an amazing website. We just bought it, actually.
I saw it online. I saw it. It's a pretty sharp looking website.
Trading cards. Mm-hmm. It's like a stock market for trading cards. So if you're not into trading cards, but somebody has left you there, I'm the guy to help you. And again, I'm still booking, I have a whole agency that I'm still booking athletes to help people grow their business. I don't think there's a business I've gone into a meeting that I haven't been able to come up with some level of an athlete stepping in at a reasonable price to help you grow your business, to change the branding look by using a celebrity. It's not for everyone, and you have to be careful how you do it. But if you're willing to dare to do it, whether it's a trade show or PR or that kind of announcement, it can work wonders if you know what you're doing, which is hence where I walk in because I show you how to do it. And that's what I'm doing these days. Besides writing the fourth book, you're going to have me back because my fourth book is so outrageous. And I'll just give you a little tip, is that I'm writing a book about urban policing. So I'm riding along in police cars for multiple hours, chasing crime, trying to understand what's going on in these cities and why our policing communities can't get along better. And so just give you a little tip of what I was doing.
So you mentioned at the beginning of our talk that you're in New York City. That's really changed a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, the city is, we're in a quandary. I think a lot of cities are in a quandary. I mean, for starters, the whole commercial real estate, people, do you go to work? Do you go back to work? I tell owners, you can put all the mandates you want about people going back to work, but you better get your ass into the office too. I can't believe how many offices where they're telling employees to go back and the people that are running the offices aren't back. I think the hybrid ways to go. I think maybe we're not in a 5 day a week in the office community anymore, but I think you probably want to be in the office a few days a week, but only if everybody's going in. Like, the whole point of going in the office is the collaboration, work together, teamwork, catch up, get face to face. If half the people aren't going in, and again, the exception is what makes it hard for big companies, that a lot of high level, really smart people don't really need to go in the office. They can work just as effectively from home. So there is a quandary, like not everything's equal, and you can't broad stroke and say, well, everybody's not coming in, because there are a lot of people that need to go in. And then there are a lot of people that just never need to go in. So you got to find a happy medium. I think the happy medium is 3 day a week. When you mention New York City, yeah, it's a little messed up. There's a lot of people that are just not coming into work. So there's parts of the city that's a little bit dribby-drabby. And then the second thing, which I was talking about with my book, the crime rate is high in every city, not just New York. There's more crime now going on, petty crime, shoplifting, and then you have a lot of people coming in from out of the country that a lot of these cities don't know what to do with. So things are a little chaotic, and I'm nervous. It's a little bit nerve-wracking because things feel a little uneasy and out of control. And I guess, what are you going to do with all these commercial spaces?
So I guess if I appointed you mayor, how would you fix the problem?
Well, first thing I do is got to make it more attractive to people to want to come into New York. I would incentivize companies to try to push the people to come back to work. In this particular city, we got to figure out how to get rid of the congestion issue without killing people on the prices. We're going to be doing congestion prices. I'm more of a fan of really putting our eggs, I'm a huge fan of putting my eggs into mass transit.
Okay.
I go to London, I go to Japan, I go to these cities, Russia, the mass transit is beautiful. New York City, it's not safe, it's disgusting. I would do a complete overhaul and expand mass transit right now in every possible way I possibly can.
Yeah, we spent
any way I can get mass transit to another level, I would do it. I think there's a lot of cities that misunderstood how important mass transit is. But when you go to places like Switzerland and Amsterdam and other countries, it's amazing how they figured it out. And we just continually don't figure it out. And it creates so much problem when you have this congestion, along with the crime, it's no good. And so the first thing I would do is I would incentivize companies more to stay and have their employees go in. So the city becomes vibrant again and real estate comes back. And then the second thing I would do is I would do everything I can to make it easy for people to get to work using trains and buses.
Yeah, and we spent 2 weeks in Germany this past summer, and you're absolutely right. In Berlin, yeah, I mean, the mass transit is beautiful. And you can walk the streets of Berlin. You're not worried about crime. You're not worrying about any of those things. And to be very candid with you, like my wife and I, we always wanted to go to New York City to, do some trips and all that. I don't think it's a safe place to be right now. And maybe that's not the right thing to say, but it's just when you look at it from the outside. Now you live there, so you have a different perspective than I do. But to me, from the outside, it's like, I don't know that that's a real good place to be right now.
Well, I think the NYPD has done an amazing job here. The level, it's the number one police department in the world. Everybody comes here to get trained. The technology is amazing. given the amount of people here, I would say it is, crime is actually, as far as the volume, is down. But yeah, this is not, I think no city in the country, it shouldn't just be New York. Most cities are not that safe. Most cities have petty crimes all over the place. Most cities, retail stores are closing because of all the petty crimes. So, we got to get our cities back stronger. We need good leadership. I don't know. It's complicated, and we've had some strong leaders in some of our cities, not only in New York before, and I'm hoping we can go find some, down the road, because it's huge. Leadership. Same thing with companies. You show me a company that's wobbly, I'll tell you that the leadership and the executive management suck. You find me a team in your favorite sport that loses all the time. I know you think it's the players, the manager. I'll show you a management team that sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, why is the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs all the time, and the 49ers and the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox? They have great management. It's management. The leagues, it's not the players, it's not luck. You're losing 30 years in a row. It's management.
So to wrap it up today, because I don't want to keep you too much longer. So what would you say would be the top lessons you've learned over your lifetime of working, as far as being, on your entrepreneurial journey? What's the top lessons that you can say to my listeners who are mostly business people trying to get ahead? What is the top lessons you would say to them?
If you're working hard to get through so you don't have to have any difficulty, you don't want to be an entrepreneur. Get good at difficulty. Get good at being able to handle risk, because anytime you do something entrepreneur, you're thinking about doing something and no one else is going to see it. So you got to be able to adhere to risk. And then you got to have leadership skills. You got to be able to sell people in and tell people in about something that they can't even see. If you can't get those three things, and that's a lot to ask for one person. And then the last thing is cash flow matters. Dream big, sample small, fail quick. Just because you got a big dream doesn't mean it's a good idea, but sample it. And when it sucks, you want to be a little resilient, fine, but at some point, let it go, move on to the next big dream. I've learned, even with my biggest dreams, I sample, I try it, I play it out, I get a proof of concept before I just start running my gamut and putting all kinds of money behind it. And then the last thing is, raising money is a big responsibility. I know you feel good. You got a bunch of people to invest. Like, it's the last thing I want to do is get other people's money involved in my shit.
Sure.
Because when you get other people's money involved in your stuff, that's even more responsibility and accountability to take what you dream about and making it work. Try to use your own money, your own hard labor as often as you can, and avoid raising money so you have a solid proof of concept and a really good use for the money.
No, that makes sense. And I tell entrepreneurs all the time, if you think you're going to work less hours and make more money, you're insane, because you're going to work more hours. You're going to work harder, and you're not going to make as much money when you first start. That's just the truth, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really is.
Well, Brandon, I really do appreciate you being on the show today, and we definitely will have you back once the next book comes out. But how is the best way for people to be in touch with you? What can they, what's the best way to reach you?
It's simple. I speak around the country. If you have any interest in having me speak to your sales team or whatever, BrandonSteiner.com. He has all the info. I'm a big LinkedIn guy, or Facebook. Message me, follow me on either one of those. I think I'm over the limit on LinkedIn, but message me, follow me. I put out content every day, multiple times a day. Love sharing anything I'm experiencing. I just don't want to be that guy who experienced something 20 years ago and now I'm teaching you about it. I'm putting up stuff that happened like an hour ago.
Right.
I'm putting up life lessons that happened a week ago. Good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. And I think that's hopefully helpful to people. Knowing what I've accomplished, knowing that I'm still sharing that, gets it real for people that are trying to know that we're all dealing with some of the same frustrations and some of the same, wow, this may work.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you, Brandon. I do appreciate your time today, and we'll send you some information. You can link to our show today and put it out there to your people, and maybe they can get some value from it today as well. So thanks again. I do appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Stay safe.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us on the Ask Ralph podcast. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. And remember, financial issues don't have to be complicated. Just ask Ralph. The information contained in this episode of Ask Ralph is based on data available as of the date of its release. Saggio Accounting Plus and Ask Ralph Media, Inc. is under no obligation to update this content if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances, and any information provided is not to be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult your tax advisor or attorney before acting on any material covered.